Coming up in News Tonight.
It's a long road ahead for BPL crews in the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew. That story coming up.
Plus, the Deputy Prime Minister looking for volunteers to assist in hurricane relief efforts. And Bahamas Telecommunications Company working to restore its networks. Welcome to our news. Thanks for joining us. Coffee News Tonight. Just 2 days after Hurricane Matthew barreled across the capital, downing utility poles and trees, more than 80% of the island is still without power tonight. Bahamas Power and Light crews are said to be working around the clock to restore power supply, but are facing major challenges. Kyle Joaquin has the latest.
It's a long road ahead for BPL crews. As you can see just on the side of me, a lamp pole here hanging on the fence, making their job of restoring power to New Providence residents that much harder. And at the moment, they can't say when they will restore power to that last customer. Call it a kind gesture. A Pinewood Gardens woman hands out apple juice and cups of ice to BPL crew members working 16-hour shifts in an effort to restore power supply to the area. She's just one of thousands of New Providence residents left without electricity in the wake of Hurricane Matthew. Pinewood was one of the many areas workers targeted today. And with men in bucket trucks, climbing lamp poles and clearing power lines of trees, BPL CEO Pamela Hill says the job isn't as easy as people think.
In terms of how long this will take, first thing I want to urge is patience, as well as your support in helping to make sure that critical areas that our crews will need to access are kept clear.
Despite the countless hours of work being put in by BPL crews, many will be without power for a few days.
All the customers is a far stretch, but I can tell you we probably will have about 75 to 80% of the customers back within the next 3 days or so. It's that last 20% that's really going to take an extra couple of days.
In the Baintown area, it was the trees, according to BPL's assistant construction engineer, that served as a major problem. That community, he said, presented some of the biggest challenges. He's also urging motorists to avoid driving under poles that are leaning.
The challenge with these low-lying conductors are individuals may be driving underneath them. The vehicles may be too tall, they may snag the line, and as a result of making contact with the line, they may bring the remainder of the poles down, may bring down more power lines with it. As a result, now giving BPL more work to do. And so these particular areas need to be very wary. As much as possible, we're asking the public to please stay away from these areas for safety concerns.
Driving through the city, you see the unimaginable. Poles and transformers in places, making the job for BPL workers that much more difficult. As we toured the city with BPL execs today, they explained that while some utility poles are still standing, it doesn't mean that nothing's wrong. Areas like St. Susie in the east were still without power because of an issue with an underground cable. Golden Gates numbers 1 and 2, Silver Gates, Eastwood, and West Bay Street, on the other hand, have already been reconnected. Then there are some areas like Seabreeze that may have to wait a bit longer than others. Here's how it's determined who gets power restored the quickest.
Areas that we have to do the least amount of work, which can get the majority of customers back on supply. And so those are the areas that we prioritize, areas that we can get a large number of customers on with the least amount of work. And now we're taking areas and we're prioritizing based on that type of scenario.
Now we're standing here at BPL's Clifton Pier Power Station. Take a look over here to the left. This is the administrative office. Well, that has some significant roofing damage. And just behind me over here, well, this was the storage building that has some serious roofing damage. But this over here, well, this was the welding station, and that has been destroyed, all by Hurricane Matthew. The washed up seaweed on BPL's property serves as a sign of just how far up that storm surge went. Workers finally got the road clear of all the barrels that were scattered about, but the building sustained some serious damage. While crews are out fixing poles and lines, according to this deputy GM, generators at Clifton are ready to roll.
We have roughly 177 megawatts installed here. Out of that, we have 110 that is ready to go right now. So generation is in step or 1 or 2 steps ahead of transmission and distribution, so we don't foresee any generation challenges.
Then there was that message circulating on social media about the island running out of fuel. That sent people into a frenzy, rushing to fill their tanks with gasoline. However, a spokesperson for the fuel industry confirmed to our news team that there is no fuel shortage, and so there is no reason to line up thinking it'll run out. He'll further explain that the jetty used to offload heavier fuel oil to companies like Sun Oil and BPL was destroyed during Matthew's passage.
Certainly, as you can imagine, it's a challenge when you don't have that, but we are resourceful, just as the people of this nation are resourceful. So we're looking at other ways that fuel can be offloaded without the pier. So we're not going to let that stand in our way. We've used other methods in the past to have oil delivered, and we'll call on those methods again.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Hundreds of people had to be evacuated along the southeastern coast and throughout much of southern New Providence as Hurricane Matthew delivered severe damage to those areas. Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis said it's regrettable residents in those areas did not heed the warnings to evacuate ahead of the storm.
Regrettably, a lot of our residents did not heed our warning about evacuating, hence putting at risk a number of brave souls who had to go out there to rescue and make sure that they were safe.
Assistant Commissioner of Police Stephen Dean said nearly 500 people had to be rescued from coastal areas during the storm, including Yamacraw, South Beach, Marshall Road, and Carmichael. Dean said rescues were being made in the midst of the storm as water was gushing into people's homes. Speaking to reporters at NEMA headquarters, Davis said he's thankful that what was lost can be replaced. He noted the coastal areas were hard hit by Matthew.
The extreme situation is exactly where we anticipated it will be. The southeastern coast along the that's the southern part of the islands, have been severely hurt, been damaged, and we are now doing an assessment there. We expect in the Family Islands, North Angus, and the coastal areas.
Davis noted the extent of the damage is still unclear as assessments are ongoing. Here in New Providence, the damage is apparent with flooding, flattened trees, and downed utility poles and lines. The roads are also littered with debris. Davis said although the Ministry of Works is making good progress in clearing the islands, volunteers are welcomed.
Well, we are looking for volunteers. There are volunteers. In fact, there are unsolicited volunteers moving around the island, as I saw particularly last evening when I was moving around myself. When we came across obstacles, we were moving around the road, and we got people doing the same thing. And so, yes, we call upon those who can volunteer. When they see a challenge, they can just pitch in and help us remove that challenge. We find that as part of the citizenry thing to do.
Davis said the Ministry of Works has set up a cleanup command center in order to tackle cleanup efforts in the aftermath of the storm. New Providence has been zoned into 5 districts to ensure all roads are passable.
We are now in that restoration mode, and we are now doing the assessment, and hopefully we will be restored to normalcy within a short order.
Well, Grand Bahama International Airport was scheduled to fully open today, but the Department of Civil Aviation said in a statement the airport will only be open from sunrise to sunset for general aviation and domestic flights only until further notice. The airport remains closed to international flights. No further details were given, but it has been reported Grand Bahama sustained severe damage as a result of Hurricane Matthew. And those students who were evacuated from Jamaica ahead of Hurricane Matthew will be able to return tomorrow. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Immigration said in a statement there will be a Bahamas Air flight leaving at 8 a.m. tomorrow from Lynden Pinling International Airport. Students are asked to be at the airport no later than 6 a.m. The manifest for the flight will be prepared by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so the government is asking students to contact the Director General of the ministry as soon as possible with their name, date of birth, and passport or travel document information. She can be reached at Sharon Haylock at bahamas.gov.bs, or you can send a text message to 242-376-1807. Still to come on Our News, BTC CEO Leon Williams gives an update on his company's network assessment and restoration efforts. Stay with us.